Hi everyone, Steven here. In this video, we're going to talk about VMware Live Site Recovery or Site Recovery Manager protection groups. And there's a few things that you need to know about it and watch out for. So stick around. Hi everyone, thanks for sticking around. So in this video, we're still building our site recovery environment, our VMware Live Recovery, again, the new name. So we're still building our environment. One of the things we're going to talk about is protection groups. And we're going to take a look at it from both using a vSphere replication perspective, which is actually really easy, and from using a hardware array replication method, which has a little bit more nuances to it and a few things to watch out for. So before we begin, I always like to throw this out there. For those of you that subscribe to the channel, thanks again, I really appreciate it. For those of you that haven't subscribed to the channel, or if you please support the channel by subscribing. It's really simple. Click that subscribe button, it's totally free, right? Without subscribers, there's no content developers, right? The other way to support the channel is liking and sharing it as well. I also have super thanks enabled. Well, that's totally up to you. So why don't we get started? Okay, so why don't we get to it? So right now, we've got our VMs being replicated using vSphere's replication. I've also set up a kind of a pseudo hardware array-based replication. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's just take a look at the simple one for first. That's the vSphere replication method. So you'll see I've already got my VMs. They're already replicated. We checked that out the last time. Let's go into Site Recovery Manager here, Site Recovery Manager. I'll open my site. I usually like to wait till all this stuff gets done and everything's okay. By the way, if these things come up and they're not in sync, a lot of times it could be NTP issues. So you may want to check time synchronization or try restarting the appliances. Let's go into here, and under here you'll actually see one of the actual warnings here says you're currently using legacy vSphere replication. It will be deprecated in the next release. Transition over to the new enhanced vSphere replication. Again, that was a feature new in version 9. So I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon, but I'll do a separate video of the enhanced replication, okay? If I click on replications, you'll see I've got my app database and my 2 web servers being replicated. We did that in the other video. We're going to talk about protection groups. Now, what is a protection group? Well, just like it says, it's a group of things you want to protect, all right? So let's click on the tab Protection Groups. Now, we're still kind of configuring our DR environment, right? We're still configuring Site Recovery Manager or Live Recovery. Anyways, still called Site Recovery up here, so I'll just keep saying it. Anyways, so a protection group is objects that you want to protect, typically your VMs, right? So let's click on New Protection Group, all right? So when I say New Protection Group, it's going to ask me for a name, all right? So maybe I'll just call it something that makes sense. Maybe this is a certain workload. This is my Exchange servers, my SAP application, whatever, workload 1. I'll call this workload 1, whatever, right? Then in what direction is this? I'm creating a protection group to protect my VMs from site A and to fail over to site B, okay? So I'm gonna leave that and I'm gonna click next. I'll talk about how you create one going the other way, but that'll be when we get into recovery plans. Now it's asking me the different type. What type of protection group is this? Is this a Datastore protection group? Is this, and that's with array-based replication? Is this a protection group for individual virtual machines using vSphere replication? Or is your storage based on virtual volumes? So I don't have a whole lot of experience with virtual volumes. It's been around for about 11 years now, I think, if I remember correctly. I'll see if I can do a video on that down the road sometime. I can't really promise that. But anyways, this is going to depend on what kind of storage you have and the features it have. Let's focus on the first two, and I think this one here will kind of fall into place once you understand the first two. Let's do individual VMs. I'm using vSphere replication. Right now, I'm not using hardware or array-based replication. Not yet, but that's coming up in a second. Maybe more in a second. So let's pick that. I'll go next. Now it's asking me what VMs do I want to protect, right? These VMs have vSphere replication enabled, which I showed you. So this is why I see it as an option. If I have VMs in my environment that vSphere replication is not enabled on, they will not be listed here, okay? A good example of this, you see web web app and database VMs. Let's cancel this real quick. Let's go back to here. Let's go into my inventory real quick. Right here, inventory. You'll see I actually have two VMs here called Retail 1 and Retail 2. We didn't see those listed. They are not protected with vSphere replication. I'll talk about those ones shortly, okay? That's going to be for array protection. Let's create our new protection group. Let's go back. Again, I'll call it workload 1 protection group, whatever. Call it something that makes sense for your environments. I'm doing vSphere replication VMs only. I'll click next. And again, you can pick and choose the VMs that you want to have in this protection group, okay? You may not select all your VMs. You're probably going to do this based on workloads. So maybe I'll just pick two of my VMs here, my web VMs, right? And I'll click next. At that point, saying recovery plan. Do you want to add it to an existing recovery plan? I don't have one. What is a recovery plan? We haven't talked about it yet. That's in the next video, okay? Do I want to add a new recovery plan, create a recovery plan right now? Or do I just want to, don't add it to a recovery plan, create a recovery plan later? That's what I'm going to do in the next video. So we're going to say don't add that. I'm going to go next, and I'm going to go finish. And we see, boom, down here at the bottom it says a success, and we see, and it's finished. It was that simple to create a recovery plan. Now, what did it do? It created what's called since I put these VMs in a protection group, at this point on the recovery site, so that site B in my environment, it created placeholder VMs. I probably should have shown this first. If I click on this, you'll see there's web VMs there, and you'll see that, let's go into this folder here. Oh, I didn't pick I didn't pick the database. So you'll see there's these two VMs here, Web 1 and Web 2. They have kind of, you can barely make it out. It's got this weird looking icon. By the way, I am on site B. That's why I changed the background color. So it's site B over here. So this is my recovery site. You don't see web or you don't see app or database here because they're not part of a protection group. So therefore, there's no placeholder VM created for it. So remember, the placeholder VMs are very, very small, and they're put on that placeholder data store that we talked about in previous videos, right? So again, this is just kind of a reserve for this, all right? So let's go back into here now. All right, so we've done that. Let's actually create another protection group. Let's just do it real quick. I'll call it app-database, whatever, just to show you. I'll go next. Individual VMs next, and I'm going to pick my two VMs there, and I'm going to go next. And I'm going to say don't add it to a recovery plan right now. I go next. I go finish. You see it'll churn away, do a few things, configuring protection group, all right, and it's done. Let's go back to here, and you now see over there, you see those app VM and the database. These are just placeholder VMs. They're very small in size, probably a couple kilobytes. You know what I mean? They're very, very small, just a placeholder, right? My VMs are still running on site A. Great. That's a protection group. It's pretty straightforward, okay? Now, how about when we get into array-based replication? Let's talk about that right now. Okay, one of the bonus things that you folks are going to get in this video is I'm going to configure my storage. Let's go back into my iPad here. Let's go iPad webcam. Let's just go iPad only. Okay, so this is sort of my environment. I've got it set up. I've got some VMs, whatnot. Now, my storage, I'm using vSAN, as I pointed out in previous videos. But I also have a Unity, I guess, virtual storage, VSA, from Dell that I downloaded, which is sort of like, it's mimicking a hardware-based storage subsystem. So I've actually got a couple of LUNs here. I've got, I'll call it LUN 1. I can't remember the LUN numbers, doesn't matter, LUN 2. This guy is, what, 50 gigs in size? I think this guy's 100 gigs in size. Okay? Then I'm using array-based replication. That's part of the Unity. Let's get rid of vSAN here. We'll say Unity appliance. I'm not going to show you how I configured that. Maybe I'll do a separate video on it. And it's got a mirror copy over here as well. Okay? So, and I've got my retail VMs located on those data stores. Okay? So let me actually show you this in a second. Let's go back to my, here. If I go to my data store, you see I got data store 1 and data store 2. Those are those Unity-based LUNs I created. I formatted them. If I click on VMs here, Datastore 1 has retail 1, Datastore 2 has retail 2. Okay? So before I could just jump in and start, creating protection groups, I have to, one, install, let's go back to my iPad. I have to tell Site Recovery Manager, there's my appliance. I have to tell Site Recovery Manager about my storage. Remember, this is the Unity storage. Unity. I'm using vSAN and the Unity. All right? So how do I tell Site Recovery Manager about it? And there's a thing called the Storage Replication Adapter. So just think of it as a plug-in. It's actually a container that gets installed on the appliance. So it can now talk to the storage and say, oh, hey, you've got this volumes, these ones are being replicated, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go back into here. Now, how do I do that? How do I add in that storage replication adapter, right? So I'm going to basically, let's get this out of the way. Let's go into site a-srm-01.vclass.local port 5480, the management interface. Am I typing the right one? Yeah, come on. Let's try the next one. Site b-srm-01.local port, port 5480, and that's going to be HTTPS. So this is on site B. Let me log in as my admin user. I'm not going to bother saving it. And down over here, storage replication adapters. So this is basically the plugin you're going to get. So where you get this, before I'd say you go to VMware site, but I actually just tried it recently because of the acquisition with Broadcom and their day 2 operations. A lot of the stuff on the websites are really trashed. Get it from the vendor. Make sure it's still supported. So I'm just going to click on new adapter. I'm going to say upload, and generally it's a tar file or GZ or zipped up file. So you'll see right here my Unity one, right? It's probably not the latest and greatest, but anyways, it's what I got right now. I'm going to say open, and you see it's actually now uploading it over here. Okay, I'm going to give it a few seconds here. I'm on site B. Now I got to do this on both site recovery managers, okay? So I'm just showing you on site B right now. Well, watch this. Notice it says it's 100%. Don't say, oh, okay, I'm done and close this. Wait. Watch. You got to wait here. I'll probably speed this up a little bit. It's going to sit here for quite a while. Actually, you know what? While we're waiting for that one, let me try the other one. I don't know what happened there. Oh, yeah, I had the wrong. CD-SRM-01.local. I'm just going to repeat the process on site A, and that's HTTPS. That's just RM1 vclass.local. There we go. Fat fingers there. I'll type in my password. I'll repeat the process on this guy so you're not going to miss anything. Storage replication adapter, add new adapter, upload it, and again here. So I have to do this on both appliances, the protected site and the recovery site. Let's go back to here. Now, notice, actually that's site B now. Let's go back, let's just watch this one here. This is site A. I'll let it finish. And this is one of the things I find it kind of quirky. Anyway, maybe it's this adapter, but notice this it's 100% complete. Sit back and wait. Let's wait for a minute. I mean, this one's done here, so I'm going to say close on that, and you'll see that it's installed. That's site B. It's installed on site B. I'm going to close site B now. Site A still says 100%. Hey, what's going on here? Be patient. Wait. If you're not patient, go have a coffee break and come back. It'll be done, right? So we'll give it a few seconds. I may speed this up right now. Notice down here it says update. You see the close button? Notice down here it says success, and there's this green bar going across. And notice how it paused there. I always wait till that's completely finished. Okay? Again, it's something I just noticed, and it just, it's just the way it is, right? So I'm just going to wait. It says, oh, sorry, uploaded, and notice how it's speeding up again, and it stopped. Again, you're going to be tempted. You could probably hit close. It'll probably be okay. Notice how it's disappeared now, right? So I always wait till that's finished. That's how I do things, okay? I'm going to say close, and you see it's over here. Great. That's step one. We installed the SRAs. Now I have to go to my site recovery manager. Technically, doesn't matter which one you do it. I'm going to go to site A, my protected site. I'm going to go into site pair, and under here, and this is what I skipped over in the first couple videos, is array-based replications. When I click on storage replication adapter, I'll say rescan, and I'll say OK. And notice it says it started. I probably have to wait a few seconds. I'm going to do the same thing on site B. Rescan. We have to wait a little bit. Sometimes maybe there we go. Okay, notice it just came up with that. Let's be patient. Let's wait for a second. Notice it didn't come up here. There we go. It came up. Status okay. Status okay. We just have to be patient, right? So great. Now, one of the things you want to make sure is, notice the version here. On site A and on site B, you want to make sure you're running the same version, okay, folks? Will it work with two different versions? Probably, more than likely, yes, but don't ask for trouble. Make sure it's the same version, okay? I don't know if this link here works, but anyways, doesn't really matter. So great, I installed the adapters. So now, SRM, both site A and B, is able to talk to Unity. Hang on a second. I need to do my array pairs here. So I have to go in and say add pairs. So let's click on add. And because I installed that replication adapter, storage replication adapter on site A and B, it says, this is the replication adapter I find. Is this the one you want to do a pair with? And you can look at more information if you want to, right? This is actually what I'm using here, the EMC Unity VSA. That's what I'm using in my environment. I'm going to click next. I'll leave a link for that, by the way, in the comments. Now it's asking me, so I'm configuring this. I'm making a site pair. And this is how you would do it generally for most other hardware array replication technology. Install the storage replication adapter and then do this pretty much step here. So it's asking what's the name for the array on my site A, right? So I'm going to call this site A-unity-01. That's just what mine is. Call it something that makes sense. What's the management adapter of that array? So mine is 172.20.10.70. And I could do filtering if I want to. It says show only LUNs and consistency groups. I can't think of a reason why you want to do that, but anyways, that's just me, right? Somebody thinks of a reason, put it down in the links below. Maybe if you're using this array to replicate to other areas that you don't want Site Recovery Manager managing those volumes or something, that might be a situation. What's the username of that array, the management? So I'll type in there. So this is the array, the storage array on site A. Let me go back to my iPad only. Let's clear the screen just so we know. I was configuring, this is my Unity here in this example. I'm configuring this one to talk to that. Okay? Let's go back to here now. And I'll go next. And guess what it's going to ask me? Well, I just told it about the one on site A. It's going to say, which one are you pairing to on site B? What do you want to call it? Okay? And here we go. Now I can say, don't create remote array right now. Maybe I'm just setting things up, and then I'll site B or my protection site hasn't been configured yet. So I can say, just skip that. You could do that. I would probably just do it all at once. But anyways, I'm going to do that. Now what do I want to call it? I'll call it site B-unity-01. That's mine. That's the name of mine. And what's the IP address of it? 172.20.110.70. That's the management IP of that. Again, I can filter, which I talked about. I'm going to specify the username and password, and I don't care if you guys see this stuff. It's a lab environment, it gets blown away. And I go next. So now it says, okay, you're calling, this is what you're calling the one on site A, this is the one calling on site B. Now it's looking for the array pair. So it did find this. Now, I already set that up on the Unity appliance. Maybe I'll do a separate video on that sometime in the future, but this is not to teach you Unity appliance. I'm not a Unity guru, right? And also this only is if you're using Unity, right? So there's the pair, it's found. I go next and I go finish. And if I go back into, and you'll see it's been status has been updated. Let's go back to here. Both of them have been updated. Now, if I go back to my array pairs, you'll see it right here. So I'm going to select it. And you see over here, I got my Datastore 1 is being replicated over here, right? So it shows you, again, Again, where my source is, site A, vCenter server, and it's being replicated over here. Great. So what VMs are on those, I already kind of pointed out. Let's actually go to site B first. Site B, again, if I select the array pair, you'll see, again, it shows me it's being done in the reverse direction, right? Okay, so let's, so that's good news, right? So that's working good. Again, here's my Datastore 1. And again, you'll see I got Retail 1 on it, Datastore 2, I got Retail 2 on it, okay? Pretty straightforward. Let's create a protection group. Enough of this, right? Let's go back into Site Recovery Manager, protection groups. Let's create a new protection group. I will call this Retail-1 just to make it simple for now. Let's try that again. Retail-1. Again, my direction, I'm going to click next. It's a Datastore. It's a Datastore protection group, or sorry, it's a Datastore group. Notice down here it says, oh, what array pair? Maybe I got multiple storage subsystems, or I may not just have one storage area or storage subsystem. I may have multiples with multiple mirror copies and multiple array pairs. So I only got the one here, so it's showing me, hey, is this the one you want, the Unity? Yeah, that's the one I want. I go next. Now it's showing me, it's asking me what Datastore do you want to protect? Now notice it's called a Datastore group. Let's click on, now when you look here, remember I showed you before I had two Datastores, Datastore 1, Datastore 2, plus I have my vSAN. Forget about vSAN. I'm going to select Datastore 1, and notice it found this VM. If I pick Datastore 2, again, it found this VM. So one of the good things and bad things about array-based replication is you're replicating your LUNs, your data store. So whatever on that data store gets replicated, whether you want it or not. Whereas vSphere replication is a per VM basis. Okay, so I can pick and choose what VMs I want. Now, I only got one VM on that data store, but if I had 10 of them, well, guess what? I'd see a list of 10 VMs to here. And you go, well, I don't want to protect all those. I just need to protect 2 or 3. Well, then you don't have a choice. The only choice you have is move those off of that data store. So when you're doing array-based replication, again, vVOLs is something different, okay? Like I said, I'll probably do a separate video on that if I'm able to. So you get all the VMs. Now, I only got one on there, right? So I'll say, okay, great, I'll go next. Now, it says add to existing. Again, we've seen this before. I say next, and then away we go. Great, that's done. Let's create one more. I got a little thing I want to show you here. So let's say new protection group. I'll call it retail-2. I'm going to go next. It's array-based. I'll go next. I'll pick Datastore 2. It's found that VM. Let's go next. I'll say don't add a recovery plan. And then I'll go next. Whoa, hang on a second. How come I got this extra screen here? Missing network mappings. Okay. Remember way back in the previous videos, I did some mappings. I said, okay, I'm going to map these port groups. Port group web, port group app, port group database on the distributed switch on site A. I'm going to do mappings to port group web, port group app, port group database on site B's distributed switch. So I did that. The reason this is complaining, this VM, and I can tell by looking at this picture, this VM, this retail VM is hooked up to a port group called PG management. And I don't have a mapping for that. So I have to go in here and tell it, oh, you need to map it to this. So this is why we do resource mapping or inventory mapping in advance. If not, every time you create a protection group, you got to specify, I didn't map that port group. I need to map it now, right? So I'll map it here, right? Or I could change it if I want to. If I don't want to see this, let's just cancel this. Let's cancel it. Let's go to that VM. And let's edit the VM. And let's go in and change the port group of it to one that I already mapped. I'll put it on whatever, port group web, I don't care. I'll say okay. Let's go back to Site Recovery Manager. Let's create that protection group again. I'll call it retail-2. I can't type. Again, I'll pick array-based, pick Datastore 2. I found that VM on there. Next, not adding it to, now notice over here, I don't see the network mapping. Okay? This is why we do mappings. If not, if you don't do mappings in the beginning, your folders and network. Now, folders are also important too. You must have those mappings set up or else it doesn't work. So I'm going to click finish, and I just created a protection group. All right? That seems pretty simple. let me show you something else, okay? So stick around. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, hey, hit that subscribe button. And if you found this entertaining or useful, hit that thumbs up for me. It helps me out quite a bit. Let me show you something else. Be right back. Okay, let's go in and delete these two port groups, protection groups I made. Delete that one, okay, and we'll delete the retail. Oh, by the way, let me show you something here. Let's go to site B. Since I created that protection group, where's retail? You see there's a placeholder VM for retail too. Okay, anyways, I already pointed that out before. Let's delete this protection group retail too. Okay, great. All right, let's try something else out here. Let's go back into here. Now, my retail 1 has only one virtual disk. And let's look, retail 1, let's look at data stores. It's only on Datastore 1. Let's edit the VM. Click, let's go in, edit settings. Let's add a new device. Let's go and add a hard drive to it. There's the new hard drive. I don't need it that big. Actually, it doesn't care. It doesn't matter. Let's expand this. It's going to be, did I specify thin? Where's thin? I don't want it thick. Let's go thin provision. Location, store it with the VM. I'm not going to store it with the VM. Remember the VM and its disk is on Datastore 1. I'm going to put it on Datastore 2, okay? Which is perfectly fine. I'll say okay. And I'll say okay here. I give it a few seconds. Now, I'm not going to go in and format that drive or anything like that, okay? So I'm just going to refresh. Notice now Retail 1 exists on Datastore 1 and Datastore 2. Let's go in and create a protection group. Add protection group. I'll call it Retail-1. Remember, I deleted the other one, right? And then it's Datastore group. There's my array. I'll go next. Notice over here, when I go to select Datastore groups, it's basically saying, oh, you have to, it's grouped together Datastore 1 and Datastore 2. Remember before, retail only existed on Datastore 1, but now it actually has hard drives on both volumes or both data stores. So it's not giving me a choice of separating those. And it's called consistency, because it doesn't make sense for me to fail over the C drive of the VM and not fail over the data drive. So now in this example, this data store, the smallest unit, it's going to protect two volumes. So maybe each of those LUNs have 100 VMs on each. That means this protection group is automatically going to protect like that 200 VMs, let's say. You're not going to have that many on one volume. But anyways, just give you an example. So by me having a VM that has multiple disks on different data stores, the smallest granularity of a data store group will be the group of all those data stores that the VM has disks on. So this is kind of the downside about this, right? So you want to keep that in the back of your mind, right? If you've got a VM that has a bunch of disks on these data on different data stores, you're not going to get much flexibility when you get into data store groups. And by the way, we fail over everything in that group. So let's say you go, well, I just want to protect retail 1. Well, I don't have a choice now. I'm protecting retail 2 and failing retail 2 over with it. So you got to keep that in the back of your mind. Like if I just want to be able to fail over 1 or 2 VMs and you're using array-based replication, then those VMs that are going to fail over together, being on the same data store is okay. All right, so you got to watch out for that. I'm going to cancel this. What's another thing that we want to check out? Let's try something else out here. Let's cancel this. Let's go in to retail, edit settings. Let's hard disk 2. Remove device. Just going okay. All right. There we go. So notice now on Datastore 1. Let's go back and try that again. New protection group, whatever. Actually, I'll call it Retail 1. Retail-1. I spelled that wrong. Who cares? Again, the array we pick. Notice now it's allowed me just to pick the individual data store, right? There's Retail 1. Okay, let's continue on. So it's protecting Retail 1. I go next. I'm not going to do a recovery plan. I go next. Finished. Okay? We'll give it a few seconds to churn here. It does say success there. There we go, right? Okay, great. Now, let's try this out. Let's go to Retail 1. Let's add a disk to it, okay? Sort of after the fact. Let's see what happens, right? add new device, hard drive, and new hard drive. Again, browse. Let's put it on Datastore 2. I'll say OK. And it's going to be thin provisioned. And I'm going to say, yeah, thin provision. I'll say OK. We'll give it a few seconds here. So now you see it's on both data stores. Let's go back into Site Recovery Manager. Let's see what happens here. Let's refresh this. Ooh, something's wrong, right? Not configured. When I click on this, right, there are configuration issues. Datastore 2 needs to be added to the protection group. So what you've done, now I'll probably do another video on this when I do the recovery plans. This is something you really got to watch out for. So I've got my Site Recovery Manager environment all set up. Everybody's a happy camper. All of a sudden, your vSphere administrator decides, oh, I'm going to give this virtual machine another hard drive. And, oh, I'm going to put it on some other data store. They're not going to be specific, or they don't know how you got things configured here. So they decide to put it on a different data store. Well, now, all of a sudden, you've got configuration issues, okay? So this machine now is not protected. Okay, it's not going to fail over. Maybe we'll try that in the recovery plan when we get to that video. So I wanted to point that out for you folks, okay? So anyways, so that's pretty much it. I wanted to cover protection groups and what to watch out for. I hope you found this video helpful. We're still not done yet. We still got to do recovery plans. That'll be my next video, and that should be the bulk of the Site Recovery Manager videos. Anyways, enough of that. Thanks very much for watching. Leave comments and questions down below. Please subscribe and like. I would very much appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye now.